Yeah. So the American Legion is uh, a military civic organization. There's several of them. VFW's a pretty common one. The DAV. So the American Legion specifically is honorably discharged veterans, and as long as you know, or if you're a current serving service member with no pending charges or anything. So to me, it's the most inclusive veterans group. VFW, you have to have touched bases on foreign soil. DAV, you have to have a documented disability through through
Mm.
the VA. And so the American Legion to me kind of encompasses everybody, and everybody has their own missions. But with the American Legion, it's just for everybody, and you'll see also that there's a lot of dual memberships. Like I'm also a life member of the DAV as well, so you'll see a lot of that. We were founded in 1919 with the conclusion of World War One. So as the heads of states and generals were discussing the treaties of World War One and all that, some of the more middle grade officers and higher enlistment were just kind of waiting on the boat ride back to the United States, and they're like, "Well, what are we going to do when we get home? You know, we've been in this war. We have, there wasn't the Department of Veterans Affairs at the time, so we kind of had to take care of ourselves, and that's where the American Legion came from. One of the biggest proponents of that was for employment, especially for those who had any kind of amputations or shell shock was a thing of that time. Just anything that would help each other out once they got back home, and of course, children and youth, which is still a pillar of ours today. Just taking care of the orphans of the kids that their dads never came back.
Hmm. Is that still a function that the American Legion is serving as far as jobs go, or has that been handled elsewhere now?
Yeah, so it's definitely a line item on our agenda list, and we do help each other out with that. Just with the improvements that we've gotten later on, like we've pushed bills, that have started, veteran preference on job applications. Of course, the GI Bill to help folks get back into school. So there's been other things that have alleviated that, and that did come from these veteran civic organizations like the American Legion. So it's not as big of a topic as like the day-to-day business that we conduct, but we lobbied for those initiatives to come about.
Hmm. Well, what's the main focus and I guess the main goal for the one here in Russellville over, say, just like the next year? What do y'all have on your agenda?
So the unofficial motto is "Veteran Strengthening America," and the big part of the American Legion is being a home for other veterans to come to whenever they've gotten out of the service and to retransition themselves to be in the civilian world. You'll be surrounded by other veterans who have been part of the eras before them, decades, several decades ahead of them, that can teach them how to relive their life and move on with their family and stuff after their military service. And we have four pillars that we uphold: Americanism, children and youth, veterans rehabilitation, and national security. So as long as we have programs under those, that's the overall like national mission. Here specifically in Russellville, we just try to modify that to the needs here. So under our Americanism pillar, we do flag education, especially at the schools. We just got done doing that closer to this past Veterans Day, where that's a hot topic, and everybody was getting geared up for the Veterans Day parade. We also do firearm safety courses under national security. Just what better to teach somebody firearm safety than somebody who lived with that tool. They also, for Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation, we have a meditation mindfulness group that meets on Thursday mornings, and we do yoga. Um, Also under that pillar, we've just recently started a fitness program to get veterans off the couch, get them moving. And the hope for them is that we can start sponsoring veterans to, join 5Ks and, um, be more active and do it as a group like we used to, for morning PT for, our, military occupations. And also the children and youth programs. Previously, that was like the, don't use drugs initiative way back when. That's still going on. There's usually like a coloring contest. That's more of a state level function that we do. And there's scholarships that we've offered in the past too. So we're still taking care of the children of veterans.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Is going back to the yoga classes and the meditation, is that a function that's open just to veterans, or is it open to
No,
the community as well?
So the premise of it is to help our veterans, but we're also open to the community. So, we're, again, it's part of that integrating with civilians too. And if, with our membership being about 120, 130 people right now, with, about any organization, you're lucky to have a third of that being active participants. And most of our younger group right now is working. So for them to be part of every activity, you may have one or two show up, and that's really hard to, turn the lights on and kick the air up for that. So yeah, we'll be open to the public for a lot of those. Probably the only thing that's a little bit more closed off is our stated meetings, and that's mostly just so we can get our business affairs in order. But we'll still have guest speakers come in for that, and if they want to listen to us making sure the electricity bill's paid, they're more than welcome to. But we usually let them start off first.
Absolutely. So when do these classes take place? And then, like, how do you, as your position, what is it technically at the Legion?
So I'm the commander, so it's essentially the president of the organization. Instead of vice presidents, we have vice commanders, and we also have an adjutant, which is kind of a combination between treasurer and secretary, and we have a sergeant in arms, and that's they just make sure that everybody's acting right within the meetings and help set things up, and kind of my right hand man to make sure if I need something, then they go get that for me during the meeting.
Go break that guy's knuckles. He's getting out of
Yeah,
line over there.
we're not that salty anymore. Once upon a time, maybe, but that's our executive committee that we have together to make things run efficiently between the meeting periods. So we're kind of charged with the in between tasks. So say the membership want to host like previously we've had a car show. The executive committee are usually the ones that make sure that everything gets placed together before the big events happen. When the other members show up and need to be put to work, we got the plans and resources.
Is that an event you plan on doing again sometime?
Yeah, so I think the last time we did it in the spring, and we're going to try for fall. So so hopefully around late September, October, maybe we'll be ready to have another car show.
Awesome. Well, hey, if you ever need a skydiver to come in with like a flag or something,
yeah,
you know who to call right here.
We'll give you a shout out.
I'd love to do that. So you're passing your baton off to somebody, right? Later this year?
Yeah, so we have our elections in April, and of course it's all based on the membership. Just how things are looking. Whenever I first got active in this group, there was about 5 of us. And in the 2 years span that I've been there, we've branched out to about 30 active members. But with that, there's been, a handful that have been huge proponents on, getting this organization to where it is. It's not just me; it's a bunch of, folks that I kind of twisted their arm to get in, but they enjoyed it and stayed in. And so Lewis Hardy is kind of the front runner for our commander for next year. Haven't heard of any other names come up yet, so I really don't expect there to be a tie off at the end of our elections coming up.
Okay. And where was the organization at, kind of as you were getting involved, or even before that? What's kind of like the history of this American Legion
So here,
post?
yeah, so here locally, we started in 1918 as an Army Navy club, and that was 1919 was the American Legion. So there was a lot of these Army Navy clubs that came out because the folks that came home from World War I early knew that there was something needed. And whenever the American Legion was born, these Army Navy clubs just transitioned into that. So we've been here since the beginning. Arkansas was actually the first one to establish um, um, a department level organization, and we are post 20, so we're the 20th in the state. So we're pretty early on compared to the others. The current building that we're at is a WPA building that was built in 1936. So we've been in our current location since then.
Mm. Yeah, I was over there the other day, and y'all are currently kind of doing some remodeling, and you've done a lot of that past couple of years, right? Or the past year? What does that timeline look like?
Yeah, mostly the past year. So there was probably the last remodels, I would guess, in the early 2000s. And of course, it's way overdue for that. So we have some members that are, have some handy skills, and so they saw the need and have the ability to spiffy the place up, and that's what we've been doing. So actually have internet getting us in the 21st century now, and new paint. Uh, we had a bunch of really old regalia from probably the 90s and maybe even 80s and 70s, and so we've taken that off and redid the walls, redid the floors. We're currently working on a grant to possibly getting some of the electrical and bathrooms and stuff done. Things that we need licensed people to fix that. But as far as cosmetic stuff, it's really gone a long way, and made it a more modern and open place for people to feel more welcomed at.
Yeah. Why invest all that time and energy? Like, what are you trying to turn the post into? What's the vision?
So what you see in a lot of these organizations is you don't see a whole lot of the uh, younger members coming in. Of course, you had to be at least 18 to 17 and a half to join the military. If you do 3 to 5 year contracts, you're going to be in your 20s when you get out, and that's whenever life gets really busy and hard to do things. So trying to juggle education and jobs and families and all that, so it's really hard to get membership, and we're trying to do our best to make it a more family oriented organization, so you can bring your spouse and your children with you.
Hmm. I see. Yeah. I've got a few buddies that it kind of came out, like you said, in their 20s, and I'll never understand, having not been in the military, what happens. But man, it feels like it has changed a lot of them, just fundamentally. And I guess that makes sense, right? They spent years of their life doing something. You always change. Um, so, have you successfully started to drive a younger membership now?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Really, I would say that if you walk into somewhere that you're unfamiliar with and you just maybe saw a pamphlet or somebody talked about it, you walk in somewhere and you don't see a representation of yourself, it's really hard for you to stay. So if you can get one or two to meet the population that you're trying to encourage to join, you'll have to get just one or two highly motivated people that get in there and stay in there, and um, so they can bring others like themselves in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how are you currently going about, like, gaining new members? I guess, how do people hear about you, like, that you're trying to have join?
Right. So the biggest thing I would say is word of mouth, community involvement. If we're not going to these flag education courses in the school, if we're not joining the downtown events with the rest of our neighbors, and if we're not on social media, then how do people know to reach out to us? So we wear our emblems, we go to events, and that way, somebody either sees us directly, or somebody says, "Oh, hey, my dad's a veteran," or "My cousin just got out of the army and he's coming here," or somebody's leaving active duty Navy and going to the reserves and they're moving back home to go to school. We can just have those conversations for people to know and give them a home to belong to, where they're comfortable with people that have experienced similar things that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think social media is a big one. I mean, we all know that. Even though we all know that, I see a lot of businesses and just people not um, thinking, oh, social media doesn't work for me, and just not investing in some sort of strategy or method to use it for their gain. That's why I love podcasts, because they're easy. You sit down, you have a conversation with someone, and I could see, potentially, you guys think about this. I could see y'all running a podcast where you sit down with a couple of your members and you talk about whatever it is, and it would appeal to potentially future members that can relate to these things. Because you're right, like people look for people that are similar to them and want to be in these groups of people with shared experiences. Have you ever thought about? I mean, you're here today, but have you ever thought about doing anything like that, where you have a podcast sort of with your members and talk about whatever it is? I mean, I'm sure there's plenty y'all could talk about.
So there's actually the national level has one. It's actually called TAL, Tango Alpha Lima, the American Legion,
Tell.
in military phonetics, and that's what they do. They go around the country, talk to other legionnaires, and talk about current events going on, that sort of thing. We have done the Veterans History Project through the Library of Congress, so our members were able to talk about their military history. Even uh, stuff is a little bit more open than what others are able to talk to. But like their experiences in Vietnam and Gulf War, Operation Iraqi Freedom, those places, um, and that gets archived in the Library of Congress. And so we've had similar setups, but not anything that's on a regular basis. Is there definitely a position for it? Absolutely. Do we have members that could possibly be tech savvy enough and have the time to do so? Maybe not sure of that, but we might can wrangle you to volunteer for us and get that
Yeah,
done.
yeah. Anytime, if that's something y'all are genuinely interested in, this space could be, I think, a great place to at least try the idea out. Right, bring a
Yeah.
couple guys in, and y'all just have your list of topics. What do you think y'all would talk about? Like, what do you think is something that interests you personally? If you were to sit down with someone from the Legion, what would you want to discuss?
I think really to humanize our members, even if you're not familiar with military culture, the veterans, we can have our members discuss what their life was in their military service. A lot of them were parts of really interesting aspects of history that they got to live and see, and then talk about what they did afterwards and how they became, your average day-to-day person. And you see them at Walmart and you just never know that they were this, hero from, back in the day with this really cool, interesting story. And so if you know that these people are in your local communities, it might kind of take the stigmas away that are associated with some veterans, with post-traumatic stress and uh, the effects of traumatic brain injury. I think a lot of people with mental health stigmas don't really understand why some people are the way that they are. And I think if people are able to talk, be on a platform to talk more openly about it, then
Yeah,
you'll never fully understand, but at least get a little bit more insight than what your common current knowledge is.
yeah. I watched just a clip popped up the other day for me where this guy, I don't know his name, but he was interviewing a World War II veteran, a guy that had like operated a flamethrower in Iwo Jima, and he was asking him questions about that. And I think he even interviewed someone else who was like in that famous photo. It may have been at Iwo Jima where they're like raising the flag on
Oh yeah.
Japanese soil, and that guy was like, "Yeah, I was just standing right over there." That could be a really valuable topic too, especially interviewing the older members. That
Yeah,
how
and
many members do you have that are still in the World War II class?
we have one that's active, and we have, I believe, two that are still in the nursing home. Of course, if you're in Russellville, everybody knows Jock Davis. He served for 37 years, retired major. Pearl Harbor happened when he was in high school, and he's got a book I highly suggest. I believe it's called The Brothers Four, and he goes into all everything that he saw. But one of the interesting stories he told me was about whenever he was coming back from the South Pacific and going through the Golden Gate Bridge, and the Golden Gate Bridge was just covered with people and American flags and waving at folks as they were coming back. And you can just really see his eyes light up still to this day whenever he talks about that.
Yeah, that would be a very interesting interview
Yeah.
that I would love to listen to. I met him once, and very very interesting guy. My grandpa is kind of friends with him.
He keeps me busy. He's for being 99 years old, he's still very active, and he presents a good idea to me. I'm like, yeah, Jock, that sounds great. He's like, okay, well, I'll call the superintendent of the school and make this happen, or I'll call the university president, make this happen, and I'll tell him that you're coming and be prepared. I'm like, okay, thanks, man.
Set you out on it.
Yeah.
So, do you think that's something he would do? Is like y'all sit down and just talk to him, interview him, and
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, he's given presentations. I don't think he was involved yet when we did our veteran history project, but yeah, he's a great guy to talk to and listen to. Another one of our members was actually um, in Germany when the Berlin Wall fell. He was part of that. We have a woman veteran who was the first Purple Heart recipient in Arkansas for the Gulf War. So I mean, it's just the people that are in there. It's incredible to know what their backstory is, and they're just today. They're just everyday Americans trying to live their life.
yeah, that's got to be a jarring experience too. You know,
Yeah.
just being in the middle of a war 1 minute and then you're back home. Cannot imagine it, man. What did you do when you were in?
So I was an Army medic from 2010 to 16. Yeah, as a kid, I watched the Twin Towers fall, and so that was at 9 years old. That was a pretty traumatic experience for me. Just on the 24-hour news cycle that started coming about at that time, and I, still very patriotic and ready to go by the time I was of age. So I thought I was ready to go the officer route. So I went one semester at University of Arkansas Tech University, joined the ROTC program, realized how expensive school was. So as soon as that first check was due, I signed up for the Army National Guard and went off to basic training in AIT as a combat medic, and came back to school to finish out that way. We were supposed to go to Afghanistan in 2012, and I even dropped out of school for that semester to make sure that I was able to go. And we got stood down last minute, and so another unit went in our place. But during my time, I did go to a few state activations for some tornado cleanups in the Conway area and an ice storm in eastern Arkansas. Um, yeah, I do remember whenever I was in combat medic school that, that was whenever Osama bin Laden was got, and it was quite the barracks party whenever that announcement came off with President Barack Obama.
Oh, I bet that was 2008, right?
No, we got
2009.
that was
10?
2011 whenever we got Osama.
Okay. What did it feel like to imagine? There's probably like a lot of conflicting feelings, thinking you're going to be deployed and then not being deployed to Afghanistan.
Yeah, so definitely a blessing and a curse. I signed up wanting to go, ready to go. Not exactly because I want to go to war. I mean, that's kind of a crazy mentality, but I wanted to fill those boots so somebody else didn't have to. I, was a strong individual, was very had a good mindset, I thought, and I feel like I could have, taken on some of those experiences better than the next person could. And so I wanted to, do that for my country and, make sure that none of that stuff happens over here.
Yeah.
So I was prepared for it, ready to go. But, I gave them 6 years. They had that time to do whatever they wanted with me, and just didn't see a reason to continue my contract. I was graduating college, so I was just kind of ready for the next thing in my life.
Fair enough. Does Is there like a stigma in the military about deploying? Is it, because you mentioned kind of like wanting to go to war. Is that a mindset that some soldiers have, or are most people not that way?
There's a few. I mean, you can probably romanticize it on the front end. You know, if you were a kid growing up and always play war games and pretend to shoot people with sticks and throw pine cones as grenades.
Is that what you were doing? That's what I was doing. Yeah.
right, absolutely. So there is a romantic side of it, but also once you get more mature and look at it, there's a lot of trades that you can learn in the military service that will transfer later on. You know, you trade out your service to your country to learn a trade, and then go back in the civilian world and do that. So for me, that was being a combat medic. I got my EMT license. You know, not only they pay for my national,
Registry.
right, that one. That was a hard test. I hated that, but they not only they pay for that, they paid for your living while you're doing that, and they gave you a check. So I mean, you're not going to get that anywhere else. You know, same thing with pilots. I mean, that's a really expensive trade to go and learn. Um, so,
Yeah.
Truck driving. There's just any job in the civilian world, you have that in the military plus some.
Oh yeah, yeah. I got several friends who use their GI Bill to learn to fly, and that's I was jealous of. Just jealous of that aspect of it, I guess. But then they of course had their sacrifice to get that. Has your patriotism or your view about patriotism changed from being in the military to now, or is it kind of, have you maintained that same outlook?
Probably more so, just because I got a taste of the sacrifices that people go through. Your friends that you lose, the time away from family, there's so much sacrifice, and getting to not necessarily witness that from my own experiences, not deploying, but seeing others and how that affected them and their, you know, even our active duty folks, you're moving every 2 to 4 years, and your kids are having to make new friends every time they turn around and learn how a new school works out. And there's just so much that goes into it that how can you not show any gratitude to the folks who are willing to put themselves and their families in those situations. I just gotta take my hat off to anybody who serves, even to this day. And I think with the American Legion, I give them a place that they can come to and start kind of getting a little normalcy back in transitioning in their civilian life, and that probably fuels a whole lot of it.
Yeah, and I imagine that is something very valuable, and hopefully more people this year kind of start looking at the American Legion and taking part in it. As you transition to just gaining more members and younger members. Do you think there's anything on that list up there that we haven't addressed, Cole?
No, I think that we're pretty much covering it. With the members that we're starting to see now are from the ones who are concluding their contract after the Afghanistan withdrawal. There's a lot of folks that served multiple deployments in the last 20 years over in that area. And as they're coming out of that, there is sort of a bitterness to it because of how much we gave up whenever we did finally, pull completely out of that area. And they don't exactly relate to the Vietnam group, but they can kind of assimilate a little bit better, just because war is a terrible thing. Conflicts are terrible things, but somebody tells you to do it, and somebody has to go do it. And so the ones that we're getting in now, just giving them a place to be so they can try to unclutter their brains for all that they went through. And we got to build now, so for whatever the next conflict is, we'll be here to welcome the next generation of military personnel home.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Cole. And for everyone listening, this was Cole Hendricks with the American Legion Post 20. We'll be hearing more from him in the American Legion as the year goes on. But thank you so much for sitting down with us and talking about these things. And one thing for sure is I'll definitely be checking out the Brothers 4.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Thank you.